Good morning here on early this morning, talking about that earthquake here, 4 a.m. I'm Liz DeWicki.
And I'm Omar Lewis. Let's get you to a map and tell you about all of this happening this morning. The shaking emanating from Three Lakes, Washington, about 9 miles east of downtown Everett this morning. Been upgraded and downgraded by the USGS, but 4.6 magnitude earthquake striking around 3 a.m. this morning, Liz.
All right, so here is what we know. The earthquake initially registering at a 4.7 and was then downgraded to a 4.4 before eventually going back up to a 4.6. That's 2 minutes after that. A 3.5 magnitude earthquake, or aftershock, I should say. It hit near the Monroe area. You can see this pointed out on this map on your screen. And we're just now learning there was another smaller aftershock there as well. That was just a 1.7 magnitude, so you probably didn't feel that one. The U.S. Weather Service saying we should not expect a tsunami. So that is some good news this morning. The earthquake was relatively shallow, but the USGS saying that they felt it all the way in some cases toward the Canadian border.
Yeah, so let's get to Bill Steele, who joins us on the phone with the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network this morning. So Bill, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
So tell us what happened this morning. Many people across our area, of course, waking up in the middle of the night feeling this. What are you guys able to tell us this morning?
Well, at 2:51 a.m., there was a magnitude 4.6 earthquake, and it is a crustal event, probably a thrust earthquake. It looks caused by compression of the rocks being squeezed up toward British Columbia, and so it's under compression rather than being pulled apart in tension. So that's the mechanism of the earthquake. We've had a 3.5 aftershock, and recently, I have a preliminary, it's still being worked on, of a possible 3.2 that just occurred a few moments ago.
All right, Bill, just walk me through this because I am definitely not an earthquake expert. But last week, when we were talking about the earthquakes in California, I had flipped on the national news at one point, and they said that experts were predicting another earthquake within the next 15 minutes. I mean, is that something that we need to worry about? And also, is that something we can predict here in our area? Because I didn't even know that people could do that.
Well, with an earthquake in the crust, and this is a little bit deeper than the earthquakes in California and tend to have somewhat less vigorous aftershocks, but you can count on aftershocks occurring to kind of accommodate the shift in strain that the earthquake produces. So you have an earthquake, and then along the fault plane and near it, the rocks will snap, crackle, and pop, and you'll have these aftershocks that follow.
Let's talk about those aftershocks, Bill. This morning, of course, people reporting those at this point. Are we going to expect those throughout the rest of the day?
Yes, and they will decrease. They tend to, on average, will decrease as we get further away from the earthquake, and they will gradually reduce in magnitude. But for magnitude 4.6, this earth aftershocks in the mid threes are expected. And there's always a small chance, and it's a small one, but it's there, increased from background, that we could have a bigger earthquake, and then this magnitude 4.6 becomes the foreshock.
Oh, geez. Okay, so hopefully that is maybe worst case scenario, and hopefully that won't happen. But Bill, talk a little bit about, because you're talking about how shallow it is, how this was sort of a smaller earthquake in terms of size. Is there any worry in an earthquake of this size of structural damages at any point, especially close to that epicenter in Snohomish County?
Yeah, this is fairly small for damage. Although, if you recall the Duval earthquake, which I believe was a 5.4 in 1996, and I'm kind of pulling that out of the air, so I may be off for a year or two. It produced significant damage near Monroe and some power substations, and there was other damage reported. So, but this is an order of magnitude smaller, and so I do see, though, there is some intensity 5 shaking, which is, pretty serious shaking. People can be frightened at that shaking level. So, near Monroe and Sultan got pretty strong shaking. There were 8 responses from Sultan that averaged modified Mercalli scale intensity of 5.
And I should mention, just for our viewers at home, before we go on to ask you another question, that